I'd like to give you some tips for how to write a great summary paragraph. So let's start here. First of all, why would you summarize something? Why am I asking you to summarize anything? Because summary actually improves your reading comprehension. Learning to summarize is a really good skill because it will help you remember what you read. Learning to summarize will help you learn to look for the most important points in a text. So actually, it's a skill that makes you a better reader. Now, writing a summary will help you articulate and become conversant about the main ideas of a text. This is important because often when we read something, especially for school, we're expected to be able to talk about it. We're expected to be able to be conversant, to have a conversation. A lot of times when we just read, we can't quite articulate our ideas about what we read until we try to write them down or express them. So it's an important step to take before you enter a discussion about something you read. Summaries can also help communicate important ideas quickly and cleanly. So it's also a really good way of conveying information to other people. So what is a summary paragraph? Well, let's start with what is a summary. A summary, as most of you know, is a concise presentation of the main points of something. Concise means that it uses as few words as possible to convey an idea. A summary is brief but comprehensive, meaning it's short but it covers everything. That's pretty tricky. So even though summaries seem like a fairly basic thing to be able to write, it's tricky to make them short but complete. So what are the traits of a good summary? I have 5 here. Number 1, a good summary clearly introduces the text that's being summarized. This is important so that your reader knows what you're actually summarizing. So when you write your summaries, make sure that you include the title of the article along with the author's name. A good summary clearly articulates the main idea of the text. It's concise. It's written in your own words. This is important. When you write a summary, don't quote or copy the original. You need to put it into your own words, paraphrase. And lastly, a good summary is objective. It doesn't include your opinion. It's just the facts. Here's an example of a summary paragraph. And I want you to note how in the first line here, the writer tells us what the title of the work is and who wrote it, as this writer summarizes this text. In Technopoly, The Surrender of Culture to Technology, Neil Postman argues that all technologies come with benefits and detriments. Okay, so that's the main idea of the whole book. He emphasizes this important point because he thinks humans focus too much on the benefits of technology without thinking about consequences. Postman also asserts that the benefits of technology are not equally distributed, and thus new technologies often contribute to inequality. His main purpose is to make readers think about how technologies change how we think, communicate, and interact as a society, and he reminds us that the stakes are high. All right, well, this is nicely concise. It's how many sentences? About 4 or 5, maybe. The first sentence tells us the main idea. The second sentence actually tells us why Neil Postman thinks we need this idea, right? Because he thinks we only focus on benefits. The third sentence elaborates a little bit on the problem with technology that he wants us to see. And then the fourth sentence just reminds us what his main purpose is. Okay, so it's nicely focused and concise. So how are you going to do this yourself? Well, try to follow these steps. First, you're going to read the articles, and I put here read, watch, and study because sometimes the text is going to be something you watch. A short TV show or even a TED Talk could be considered a text. It's full of language and images that you actually read and can study. In this case, we're reading articles. So you're going to read the article and you're going to take notes. Then you're going to reread and if necessary. And you're going to look up any vocabulary that you don't know. It's important that you understand the text. And, we all know you don't need to know every single word to make sense of a text, but you should look up things that seem important, especially if you're confused about what's going on in a paragraph. So after you're sure you have a good sense of what the text is about, can you identify the main points? Once you can do that, you're ready to write your summary. So give it a go, write a summary for each article, and then make sure you give yourself time to edit those summaries down so that they're concise. You might get rid of sentences that are repetitive or, that maybe distract from the main point that you're trying to convey in the summary. And then revise it to make sure that it's clear and correct. And when you're ready with that, then you'll be ready to go on to the next step.